Joining me on India First is Air Marshal Sanjeev Kapoor, former Director General, Flight Safety and Inspections, and Captain Saurabh Bhatnagar, a pilot himself, formerly with Air India Express. Air Marshal Kapoor, you've read the report. What's your appreciation? And you've seen the clarification that's come from AAIB. Is there an effort to blame the pilots and save a company or systems of that company without a proper detailed investigation? These insinuations that are being made repeatedly?
Hey Gaurav, good evening to you and the fellow panelists. There is a pattern, Gaurav. All Boeing accidents which have happened in developing countries before the accident investigation. I did a thorough research today after this Wall Street and I said, let me see if there's a pattern. Yes, there's a pattern. And this pattern runs way back from 1997. 1997, there was a Silk Air crash in Indonesia. They blamed the pilot. It was 737. Thereafter, an Egypt Air aeroplane crashed in 1999. It was again a Boeing 767, and they, said like this. To our memory now, MH370, when it
Yes.
took off from Kuala Lumpur for Beijing, it was a Boeing 777 which disappeared over the ocean. And if you recall, you have covered that, I remember, that
Yes.
the pilot had mental issues. The pilot was not in the right frame of mind. Till date, we have not been able to find. Fast forward now, come to 2018. Lion Air crashes, Boeing
Yes.
737 MAX. And thereafter in 2019, Ethiopian Airways crash. And in both these things, the narrative that was built up was say that the pilots were not well trained. They're modern aircrafts, and also they had a mental issue. Those pilots, who were in command at that time, were not, in the right state of mind. Here also, come to Air India 171 crash. The Wall Street Journal, 24 hours before the preliminary report is released on 12th, has an article going to say that most likely it is a fuel malfunction and most likely it is a pilot error.
Pilot
So,
error.
and hereafter, selectively, yesterday they says that the pilot was stressed and he has 15,500 hours of flying. And
Yeah.
if you see the pattern, all are Boeing aeroplanes and all from global south. And I did my research today. In that, I just found out there is only one societal confirmed case wherein a commercial aircraft has been flown into the ground by the
Yes.
pilot, and that is a German wings aircraft in
Germany. Yeah.
2015.
That's right.
So,
That was a
so to
CFIT because that pilot was depressed. But I want to come to
yes,
are all facts in public domain so far, Captain Bhatnagar? No. The preliminary report also notes that 2018 FAA Special Airworthiness Information Bulletin that warns of fuel control switches on Boeing 787s and 737s that they could have disengaged, locking mechanism, potentially allowing unintended movement. Should that be looked into by Boeing? Should that not be made into a mandatory airworthiness directive instead of now going in for selective leaks and blaming the pilots? Is that what appears to be happening in your appreciation?
Hi, good evening, Gaurav, and good evening, Marshal sir. You know, this report, this narrative was set by Boeing not only much before. On 8th of July, there was a Air Current publication. They published an article regarding the same that the probe is going towards the fuel control switches. Then Wall Street Journal came up a day before. Boeing is known to set up these kinds of narratives. Any accidents have happened, whenever these accidents happen, like in Lion Air cases, it was
Yes.
blamed that pilot's problem, but finally they realized that it is the faulty angle of attack sensor which led to the MCAS, cutting in. So now I
Yes.
am not surprised what is happening as of now, because under whose pressure I don't know, because Boeing has lot at stake. If because they are Boeing and Airbus, the only two aircraft manufacturing country in the world. If something happens to Boeing, or if any directions is given by the AIB to the Boeing or recommendation, they have to perforce ground the entire 787 fleet to carry out these any kind of recommendation being made at AIB. AIB is an official investigation board of the country. And if
Yes.
that gives any recommendation, it is mandatory for the aircraft manufacturer to ground the fleet and tell all the operators across the world to carry out these kind of recommendations made by the board. Do you think what will happen? What happened in the Lion Air case? Same thing. When the 73 MAX was discovered that it's an MCAS faulty sensor, the entire fleet was grounded. And how much
Yes.
Boeing had to suffer the losses. So what my opinion is that yes, there is something bigger game is going on. That is why they are
There's a
selectively,
bigger game at play.
Yes,
Marshal
they're
Kapoor,
selectively
the
leaking out.
AAIB report indicates the fuel switch moved to cut off, but there's no clear evidence that there was a pilot intent to do so. There's no evidence that mechanical failure has been ruled out. In your appreciation, what steps should be taken, whether it's a system issue, whether it's a fuel control system issue, whether there are other components at play? How long before we know that for sure with the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder being probed?
I covered in your program other day, Gaurav, that 20 days after the complete FDR and CVR data was with the AIB, a better work could have been done, in my appreciation. Even if what has been put out is not adequate, it is in bits and pieces. The giving of one line of CVR, just this
Yeah.
conversation, and rest not commenting on any other conversation, in my opinion, doesn't make much sense. In what context was this spoken to? What was the full conversation? After this conversation, what did the pilot say? What were the engine parameters recorded before it was cut off? Even if you are saying that it was manually cut off, as it appeared in the prelim report, but it has not come out very clearly, either in the AIB report. And to take, there's a saying in English called red herring. So, as a red herring now, a new angle is being introduced, in my opinion, about pilots' mental health, which was never ever, discussed, and it has been a pattern which I just covered with you. So it's a common pattern with the global south, as we say now, or the developing countries, as we said earlier. Any accident happening in these countries, this is the general narrative that has been taken across. And in
Okay,
my
Captain
opinion,
Bhatnagar. Yeah, go on, sir. Complete your point, sir.
the most experienced pilot, an examiner, a Czech pilot with 15,500 hours, and a 787 commander, why would he, do this action? It is bizarre, in my opinion.
Truly. And Captain Bhatnagar, in your appreciation, should there have been, for example, a multi-operator message to all 787 operators, examine, check, revert, so that after 30 days, there is some more information that's available in public domain, point 1 and point 2. Should there have been a press conference, explain things in detail instead of a 15-page report that leads to so much speculation?
Absolutely, you actually brought the correct point. The AIB should first of all have a initially press conference about this preliminary investigation report. Now, if you look at the report again, I'm seeing the same thing. The main aim of any preliminary investigation report, as per the ICAO Annex 13, Chapter 7, any high-profile accident, they have to they have to disseminate the data. Now you look at the
Yes.
data. What sir is saying? Data is only EFR about the engine. Now, if you put something in the paper that yes, they fuel control switches. Now, fuel control switches transition has got two meaning: either manual or by malfunction of any components by or sending an erroneous signal or software glitches. Now,
else
if
computer
they had
glitch,
left
yes.
only at that. If they had left only at that would have led to immediately some recommendation from the AIB for towards Boeing to check for any mechanical or any software glitches. Now, how
Okay.
should they avoid that? So what they have done is now they have given two lines. One initially that one pilot said, why did you cut off? And later on they said another pilot, that one pilot said, mayday, mayday. Now, why can't the data of the CVR be published in the preliminary investigation report? Now,
Okay.
by writing this one line, they have clearly stayed away from the technical thing and pointed the finger directly
Absolutely.
to
And
the pilots. That is what.
was this then
Otherwise, they
deliberate?
were forced to give. They would have been forced to give the recommendation because it can happen anyway, manual or electrical malfunction. So now, how to tell the world?
Absolutely.
So how to tell
We'll
the
track
world?
the
How to
story.
tell the
I've
Boeing
run out
that
of
it is
time
not?
on this part of the show.